A year as a fly fisher. When you are a fly fisher living in southwestern part of Norway, the winter can be long, dark and cold. I spend many of the dark nights watching YouTube movies, learning new nymphing techniques. I try to spend the weekends outside. Luckily, living in the fjords, the nature is still beautiful. You can go skiing in the mountains or do some ice fishing. It's not the same as fly fishing, but it's still something to do to kill some time. But you're mentally not in the right place yet. And you can't wait for the spring and summer to soon arrive. So you can dip your flies in your favorite river and lakes. I spend the early spring with my new hiking buddy and enjoy our surroundings. And then finally, the mountain snow is soon gone and our trees are getting beautiful colors. The spring is on. The last few years has been all about dryflies. The winter has been giving me new knowledge about fishing with nymphs. I had also assembled different rods for different Euronymphing techniques, and I couldn't wait to test them out. I started out with Euronymphing or tightline nymphing. The first setup was the long mono leader connected directly to the backing. I also tested various indicator setups. I spent a lot of time adjusting the gear. In the beginning it was hard to fish correctly and to get any fish in the cold water. Most of the time I did tightline nymphing. With warmer water I get in contact with the fish, but I didn't hook the fish correctly. I learned to hook the fish downstream with any little twitch on the sighter. I started to catch more and more fish. When I needed more distance, I switched over to the standard indicators. I started with a 4-weight rod and a floating line. It was hard to find the right weight on the nymphs. Sometimes I used a split shot. When I learned to mend the fly lines correctly, strike indicators was very effective. Even though the new techniques gave me more fish, I still went on adapting the system. The tight line nymphing with monofilament and backing was not easy to hold on to, and with the indicator setup I felt the floating line was too heavy when doing longer casts. The solution was to use the back of an old fly line or the running line. From there I attached a heavy monofilament, a sider and then a normal tippet. When I wanted to do longer casts, I would attach a small yarn indicator on the sider. It wasn't perfect to cast with the running line, but the mending was a lot easier. I was catching more and more fish. I was still waiting for a big one with the new techniques. But I met bigger fish when it was dark and I was fishing with streamers. I still had dry fly fishing in my blood, and when the ice left the mountain lakes, I had to get up and give it a try. The conditions were perfect, but nothing really happened. It's strange how your first dry fly trip can give you adrenaline, even though nothing happened. The temperature in the river was now rising, so I had to go back and give it a try with the new techniques. I started with indicator and 2 flies. After just a few casts, I hooked something that gave me a good fight. It wasn't the biggest fish I've seen, but it was very strong, and I felt something was going on. And just a few casts again. Fish on. With a 6x fluorocarbon tippet, I was sure I was gonna lose the fish, fighting in the current. Long and good fight. Finally a bigger trout. We're only in the month of May, and I already reached my goal to catch a 1 kilo trout on the nymph techniques. The next goal is to catch one on the dryfly. Finally a trout took my caddis fly, but it needed to double its weight to reach 1 kilo. When the summer fully arrived, I was hoping for some dryfly action in the river as well. I couldn't see much action on the surface, but I saw some daddy longlegs flying around, so I started with that one. When the evening started, I was getting more and more smaller fish. And when the caddis started to hatch, I changed the fly. As it was getting darker and darker, the fish was getting bigger and bigger. When you hook a fish that swims up against the current, you know that something is going on. The caddis hatch was getting stronger and stronger, and as it was getting darker and darker, I changed to bigger and bigger flies. The fish was not as big as the one I lost, but it was the biggest fish on a dry fly this year. A fat trout weighing 600 grams, but with 1 hour left before it was fully dark, I was hoping for something bigger. When it gets too dark to record with my GoPro camera, I shorten my leader and put on a big caddis dryfly. And it paid off. I fished just under and one over the 1 kilo mark.
Det surrer det godt inn det.
But when the Dracula army arrived, I had to call it a night. In the end of June, me and my new hiking buddy spent her first night in a tent. Quality time with fishing, chilling, and nature. When July arrived, the hot summer continued. I packed the tent for a night in the mountains. My hope was that the water wasn't too hot. Not many insects, but still a few fish breaking the surface. Could I finally catch a big mountain trout on a dry fly? Close, but no cigar. In the moonlight I started to catch a few nice trouts, but I was still waiting for the big one. With the fog climbing the mountain, a dream about the big mountain trout just washed away. I had a sip of whiskey, waited 15 hours, but the fog would not go away. End of July, and we are climbing up to 1000 meters above sea level. Our hope was colder water in the higher altitude. Early morning and mosquitoes gave us rising fish. Once again, the trophy mountain trout received help from the fog. Trophy mountain trout 1, flyfisher 0. On the last trip of the season, we took the ferry across the fjord. This time the goal was sea trout and salmon. I left all the cameras at home to focus 100% on the fishing. The result was a new personal best sea trout on 2.7 kilos.